The wind howled through the canyon like a morning ghost, rattling the bones of the old fence that lined the barren road. Dust rolled across the open plain as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in streaks of crimson and burnt orange. It was the kind of twilight that made men feel small, like something ancient was watching from the horizon. And that's when rancher Eli Morgan first heard the whimpering. It wasn't the cry of a coyote or the whinny of a foal. It was human. Soft, broken. Coming from the back of his hay wagon. He tightened the reins, pulling the cart to a stop, heart hammering beneath his worn flannel. Eli wasn't a man easily rattled. He'd buried a wife, survived a barn fire, and raised 3 boys who had since scattered like tumbleweed. But that sound, it had sorrow threaded through it like barbed wire. He climbed down, boots crunching the gravel, and moved toward the burlap sack he'd found earlier at the edge of the orchard. He had thought it was just junk, maybe trash dumped by a careless traveler. It hadn't moved. Until now. "Hello," he called softly, hand hovering above his holster, just in case. Another rustle. Then a voice trembling and almost too soft to catch. "Please, take them off." His fingers gripped the knot at the top of the sack, heart pounding. Slowly, he tugged it open. And there she was. A girl, no more than 17, her face pale and bruised beneath a curtain of tangled dark hair. But what caught Eli, what froze him in his tracks, were her eyes. Not because of their color, but because of the blindfold wrapped around them. Tightly tied. She flinched from the light, whimpering again. "Please, take them off." Who would do this to a child? Eli thought, throat tightening. Gently, he reached forward and untied the blindfold, his hands shaking. The cloth fell away, revealing deep purple bruises and eyes that blinked rapidly, adjusting to the dim glow of sunset. She stared up at him. "You're not him." "No, ma'am," Eli said, voice thick. "I ain't whoever did this to you. You're safe now." She tried to sit up but cried out, her arms bound with rough twine, her ankles too. Eli cursed under his breath and pulled his knife from his belt, cutting her free. "Name's Eli. I got a ranch down the road. You're coming with me." She nodded, too weak to argue. Back at the ranch, under the golden lamplight of the kitchen, she sat curled in a blanket at the table while Eli heated a can of soup. She hadn't said much, only that her name was Ava. Her hands trembled as she held the spoon, eyes darting to every sound outside the window. "Who did this to you?" Eli finally asked, kneeling beside her. She didn't answer for a long time. Then, in a voice scraped raw by tears, she said, "My stepfather. He sold me." Eli's blood ran cold. "To who?" She looked at him, eyes glassy. "Some men. I never saw their faces. They kept me in the dark. Said I was merchandise. But I heard them say they'd come back for me. They must have gotten scared and dumped me when something went wrong." Eli leaned back, jaw clenched. Rage boiled in his chest. "They're not getting anywhere near you again. Not while I'm breathing." The following days were quiet, healing. Ava, though traumatized, proved resilient. She helped feed the chickens, followed Eli as he worked the fields, and slowly began to trust again. The dark circles under her eyes faded, and her laughter, soft and uncertain, began to return in flickers. But fear lingered like a shadow. One night, just as the stars blinked into view, Eli heard the dogs barking violently. He stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand. A black pickup truck was parked at the gate, engine idling, no lights. A man stepped out. Big. Wearing sunglasses despite the darkness. "You got something that belongs to me," the man called out. Eli's hands tightened on the rifle. "I think you're mistaken. She's mine." "You don't want trouble, old man." "You don't own people," Eli growled, aiming the gun. "You think you can protect her forever," the man sneered, backing toward his truck. "I won't have to," Eli said. "Because the sheriff's already on his way." The sirens broke the silence seconds later. The man took off, but the cops caught him less than a mile down the road. Weeks passed. Ava gave her full statement to the authorities. The ring that had trafficked her was busted wide open thanks to what she remembered. But the process wasn't easy. There were courtrooms, lawyers, media vans. And through it all, Eli stood beside her, not as a savior, but as someone who refused to let another child get swallowed by the darkness. One morning, after the snow had begun to melt and the fields turned green again, Ava stood on the porch looking out at the ranch. "Eli," she said quietly. "Yeah? Why did you help me? You didn't even know me." Eli looked out across the land. Because when someone's trapped in a sack, blindfolded and broken, and they still have the strength to whisper, "Please, take them off," that ain't just someone asking for help. That's someone choosing to believe there's still good in this world. And I couldn't let that die. She smiled, tears in her eyes. "Can I stay? I don't want to go back to any shelters." He smiled, pulling his hat down to hide the emotion in his eyes. "You're already home, kid."